Good evening. I'd like to call the licensing board for March 16th, 2020 to order. And would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two items on tonight's agenda. First being licensing board regular minutes for the March 2nd, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Item 2, a list of the operators' licenses, and they are in our packet.
Motion to approve.
Second, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Being no further business before the licensing board, I adjourn.
All right, I would like to call to order the Board of Public Works. We have two items on tonight's agenda. The first is the minutes from our meeting on March 2nd.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or changes? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And oppose? Motion carries. Item number 2 is the temporary use of the northern half of the employee parking lot on South Main and Vine Streets for the Roots and Branches annual plant sale and Adopt a Plot Days. Presentation by Jim Reinke, but I guess Jay's taking this
The
one.
employee reduction stance, I'm taking this one for development. We've had this proposal before you in previous years. Part of the discussion and ask this year was going to be for the council to allow this to be a staff decision in the future. You guys can certainly talk about that and decide that if you'd like. The actual event for Roots and Branches annual plant sale has been canceled for this year. So the northern half of the employee parking lot is not critical for 2020. It's up to you whether you want to have that conversation regarding future years. They will likely want to do it again. It's just a matter of the situation that we're dealing with now, that event has been canceled already for 2020.
You suggesting we have that conversation now?
But you certainly can. If you don't, then we'll just have it on the agenda for 2021 when we come back, which is fine. What I was going to suggest, or Mark was going to suggest on behalf of development, a 5-year exemption or something like that, so we didn't have to keep coming back.
I'd like to make a motion that we delegate this, the ability to authorize this to the planning department until such time as the council no longer wishes to allow that delegation.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And oppose? Motion carries.
Thank you.
With no further business before the Board of Public Works, I adjourn.
Thanks, Andrew. I'd like to call the March 16th Finance Committee to order. Realize we have 15 items on the agenda. Item number 1 is the minutes of the March 2nd meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Item number 2 is a presentation by Ehlers regarding the issuance of sale of $6.35 million in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020B. The presentation by John Cameron. Good evening, John.
Good evening, everybody. What I'm going to do is just kind of walk through the pre-sale report, which you should have in your packet, and just kind of hit the highlights of the sale, and we'll talk a little bit about where things are in our turbulent times. But what you have before you is a number of different resolutions, because these are our corporate purpose bonds. Under state statute, you have to adopt not to exceed resolutions by type under state statutes. But in total, $6,350,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020B. This is for your 2020 capital improvement projects as well as infrastructure within tax incremental finance district number 14. There also is a little bit of water system projects which would be paid for. Debt service would be supported by water utility revenues. In terms of authority, this is being issued under general obligation borrowing authority, which municipalities in Wisconsin are limited to no more than 5% of their total TID-in equalized value. After the issuance of this debt, it's estimated that the amount of debt outstanding would be $50.2 million, which is 34% of your total GO borrowing limit. Your remaining limit would be just under $98 million of remaining capacity. The bonds are being issued for a term of 20 years, and most of that is, in terms of the 20-year period, is on the TID side to coincide with the life of the district. Principal on the bonds will be due May 1st, starting 2021 through 2040. Interest would be payable every 6 months, beginning May 1, 2021. As part of this debt issuance, we would also be looking to have a call feature associated with it, which would be starting on May 1st, 2029, or any date thereafter. So you'd have the ability to call, either prepay the debt or refinance it for savings if interest rates are more favorable then. In terms of a rating, we would be seeking to get this debt rated through Standard & Poor's, which is the rating agency we switched to recently, where we got a AA rating, which is an extremely strong credit rating with a stable outlook. So we'll go through the rating process like we do on an annual basis with any new debt issuance. So we'll go through that process here with this debt issuance. I'm going to jump to the timeline here. For this. So if you're looking at the report, it would be on page 4. But in terms of timeline, what we're looking to do is we're here this evening for authorization, looking to get the rating and due diligence call process for reviewing the preliminary official statement the week of April 6th. Looking to have the award of the sale, have the bond sale itself on April 20th. So we would be doing this via competitive sale process is really the standard practice here, especially with general obligation debt for routine capital improvement projects. But again, I think, really with the volatility that we're seeing in the market right now and just really what's happening, I think we have kind of ultimate flexibility here to switch gears if need be. But as of right now, the plan would be to go forward with a competitive sale. If market conditions change over the coming weeks, it's certainly something we'll be, in contact with city staff and kind of working through any and all alternative means to be able to access funds on a schedule that would need to happen for any necessary payments and approvals. But from a preliminary schedule standpoint, we'd be looking at selling on April 20th and having funds on hand really on or about May 7th. In terms of the worksheets, the sizing is shown on page 5 of the pre-sale report. Just one kind of item to highlight. From a TID standpoint, we do have capitalized interest built into the overall sizing to cover the 2021 interest payment, with the full debt service payment starting in 2022 for the TID piece of it. But overall, you can see the sizing in terms of the projects that are within the borrowing on page 5. And the estimated principal and interest payments in total, and then by type on pages 6 and 7. The last thing I'll kind of touch on is the final page of the pre-sale report, which shows a 1-year trend in where bond rates are. I think if I could get out my crystal ball, I would probably be on some national syndicated talk show or television event right now talking about where things are within the market. We've certainly seen a lot of volatility as a nation. Certainly, I think most people have seen what has happened to the stock market in the coming days, including today, or in the last few days, including today, where it dropped almost 3,000 points. We have seen interest rates on municipal bonds come up within the last week. We've seen a lot of volatility in terms of where underwriters, initially, I think within the last week, were skittish about bidding, although we did have a bond sale today out on the western part of the state where we got about 4 or 5 bids, so kind of a good sign there. I think historically, what I would say in times of crisis is municipal bonds have always been kind of that safe harbor where you'll see investors, looking to buy into essential public purpose type projects. I think really what we need to see over the next week or so is kind of where the dust is going to settle on the market. Eventually, we'll be able to get a clear picture on where things are settling with interest rates. Prior to last week, really, interest rates were really at an all-time low, and you can see that kind of in the graph here. Where they may settle is slightly above where they are now, but still, hopefully in a very favorable position. But, I think right now, like everybody, we're assessing where things are. I think kind of the important takeaway is that we really are monitoring things. We have bond sales, several this week, some of which have been pulled because of the timing of when they need funds and just wanting to see where the dust is settling, but some are going ahead. So I think by really the end of this week, we'll have a better handle on where things stand, and we'll be in communication with staff as to kind of where things are going and what the best course of action is. But at least moving ahead in terms of authorizing the sale gives you the ability to move forward on this timeline if things kind of hopefully settle back down. I think that's what we all need right now. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure that I'm understanding properly is we can move forward right now as if the sale's happening, and if something were to drastically change, we
Right.
can.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Any comments or questions for John at all? Yes, Mark?
John, you said bond sale out in the western part of the state got 4 bids. Were they in line with what you were expecting to see based on?
It came in, it really, just right in line with what our pre-planning estimates are, which we like to, estimate a little bit more conservatively, but it came in, right around the pre-sale estimate. So
Okay.
kind of a good sign, at least from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions for John? If not, we'll start going down the resolutions then. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is an initial resolution authorizing the general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $3.05 million for community development projects in the taxed incremental district number 14.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 4 is an initial resolution authorizing the general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $305,000 for water system projects.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 5 is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $2.38 million for street improvement projects.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this one? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 6 is the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $35,000 for fire department equipment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 7 is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for park and public ground projects.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 8 is an initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $280,000 for garbage disposal projects.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this one? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 9 is a resolution directing the publication of notice to the electors relating to the bond issues.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. And finally, a resolution providing for the sale not to exceed $6.35 million in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020B.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. I think that pretty much wraps up all of our general obligation funding. Thanks again, John, for stopping out, keeping us below the 10 minimum out there. I appreciate it. Item number 11 is a resolution approving carry forward appropriations from 2019 to 2020. The presentation by Carrie Winkelbauer. Good evening, Carrie.
Good evening. I had attached 2 different spreadsheets for the 2019 carry forward requests. One is for the general fund, and then another one's for the general library fund. The total general fund requested amounts totaled $349,952.51, and the general library fund was $53,687. Jay and I had both reviewed these lists and recommend that Common Council approve them. Basically, all of the carry forward items that are listed are either tied with resolutions or grants and donations and such, so they are required to be carried forward at this time. Right now, the general fund unaudited results is currently at a net loss of $362,519. Our audit just started today, just to let you know. And so these carry forward amounts will be funded through the undesignated fund balance account. At the end of 2018, that undesignated fund balance percentage was at 28.31%. And with the carry forwards and the net loss, it will be projected at the 26.87% with these carry forward amounts.
Thanks, Carrie. And I think Jay mentioned this is the first time in your entire career you've ever had a...
Yes, unfortunately. So
Well, I'm sorry it had to happen this year. Yes, Jay.
Just to add to Carrie's presentation, we did have several departments request items to be carried forward, more carry forward requests than what are being recommended in this document. It was felt with the negative cash in 2019 that we could not recommend honoring those. We're already seeing our percentage go down to 26. And I just wanted you to be all aware of that we did have requests from departments for valid projects, items that they've been holding off on for some time and would have really liked to have available monies carried over from 2019 to 2020. But again, with the next presentation, you're going to hear from Carrie as well. It was felt by Carrie and myself that we could not make that recommendation to you this year.
Thanks, Jay. Any comments or questions for Jay or Carrie?
Motion to approve.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Can you explain like what that means a little bit more? Like,
Sure.
Okay,
Carrie, do you want to do it or do you want me to?
you can try, that's fine. I can add.
Go ahead, you start, I'll fill in.
Okay, what kind of questions are you looking at?
like I know you were saying like the departments wanted to carry forward more money, but they're not able to. Can you elaborate what that means?
Yep. We only carried forward the amounts that are tied by resolutions. For example, if someone has a grant, for example, the parks has the EAB grant and such, so that's tied by the resolution. It appropriated a particular expense account in the general fund. So that's tied with the resolution and such, and it's also a grant. So that needed to be carried forward. So we looked at anything that, if anyone donated any money that wasn't unspent, the fire department had the smoke detectors, so those funds were carried forward. They didn't spend all of those monies in 2019.
So will they get the money then next year for like more smoke detector, or no, it goes into the general fund, is that what we're saying?
Well, if they don't spend all the monies this year
Yeah.
in 2020, then they can request it to be carried forward again. But we'll see how 2020 ends up, so.
Okay, so it just depends on if it's approved or not?
Yes.
I think another example to maybe share is, well, I'll share two, but in fire, we had SCBA payment that we were hopeful to come from 2019 unspent funds. Well, there are no 2019 unspent funds, but yet we had to carry forward enough money in order to make that payment. Chief Kudik, if you remember his presentation, received a grant to redo the ventilation, and there's a 10% match, and
Yep.
we suggested that money is going to come from 2019 unspent funds to make the match. Well, again, there weren't any, so we did carry forward funds from fund balance for those projects, but Chief also made a recommendation. We have an aging generator at the Fire Station 1, and it's been on our CIP list for some time. It's still working, but in need of replacement in the future. And that item was not recommended to be funded from carry forward funds because it would have driven our overall fund balance down to a level that Carrie and I didn't feel recommended that we could recommend. Chief Moyler had a couple of items, way smaller numbers, but projects that were unfinished in 2019. And really felt strongly about finishing and will finish in 2020. Again, we feel like Chief Moyler will have funds within his 2020 budget to be able to accomplish those items without carry forwarding any more funding from money that we don't have. So it was probably some tougher decisions than we've had to make in the last couple of years, but again, this was a unique situation due to not having availability of unspent 2019 funds.
And that's because we're at the 26.87, so we're kind of on the higher end of the suggested range? Is that?
That's the lower end. We want to be.
the lower.
Right.
We want to be between 17 and 30, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions? I don't remember. Did we have a resolution? We did? Okay. I have a motion and a second on this one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Item number 12 is the unaudited 2019 general fund results. Again, Carrie.
Again, as I had explained in the carry forward item, we are looking at an unaudited loss of $362,519. I had attached both our general fund revenues and our general fund expense reports for everyone to see and review. The main costs that contributed to the net loss were overages in the health insurance and also the landfill expenses. So those landfill expenses came in mainly towards the end of the fourth quarter, and we had to accrue a bunch of those expenses as well that back to 2019 because they related to like November, December expenses. So. Again, at the end of 2019, the estimated undesignated fund balance compared to the 2020 budget will be at 26.87%. So it still is within our fund balance policy, which states that 17 to 30% as well. So are there any questions at all?
Thanks, Carrie. Jay, I think I've asked this in the past. The landfill costs, those are not recoverable from insurance, correct?
Correct, we've submitted them. Ian, I don't know if you want to comment more on that, but
they are not recoverable from our current insurance. We're exploring whatever other coverage we might have. I wouldn't count on it, but it'd be nice if we find, if there is coverage there. I wouldn't anticipate it at this stage.
Well, tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. There might be a pot of gold sitting somewhere, right? Yeah. Jay, you wanted to?
yeah, if I may,
Yeah.
this isn't great news overall as an organization to be negative. It is worth pointing out as you flip through those pages that are included in your packets that there are departments that were significantly under. That I specifically mentioned fire and police. Again, Chief Moyler and Chief Kudik do a great job of managing their overtime budget, and without a significant catastrophe or something that's going to drive that overtime usage, we will likely have some available funds. And 2019 is that, again, represents that year where both of those departments didn't have enough to overcome the overall loss, but certainly both finished the year 2019 in the black. And I just want to recognize that. They both have significant portions of our budget, which we do point out, but they also have significant portions of the amount that was positive at year end. And I think that's worth noting.
Nope, that's good. Thanks, Jay. Thanks to the chiefs for that. Carrie, since we are nearing the end of the first quarter, when it comes to the health insurance side, are we seeing, do you know off the top of your head, is it looking positive, or is it looking like it's going to be a challenging year again on the health insurance side?
That's actually, too early to predict at this point. So
Okay.
right now I've been concentrating on the audits. So
That's fine. I was just curious if.
I will be sending out the quarterly reports though once we have the first quarter finished. So
Perfect. Thanks. Yes, Chris.
Excuse me. So, but bouncing off of that, I know a lot of this, was kind of out of our control, but looking back now, are we learning anything else about what we can do moving forward for future budgets?
Jay and I had that discussion at a little bit of our last department head meeting. So with the tax levy, though, we're kind of at a point where it all depends on how much we can increase our levy by and such. So that will come up later on in the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris, any other comments or questions?
Yep.
Yes, Mark.
So in terms of the COVID-19, there are going to be, if we get people that are sick, that's going to obviously have some impact. Have we started to look at any of that? And this is to either Jay or you. I realize we've had a lot of time to do homework on this.
Are you asking from like a health insurance or from a
Yeah,
other impact side?
The health insurance.
I mean,
risk.
I don't know that any of the three of us have a clear picture from a health insurance. I can tell you that the leave policies and stuff like that it just really depends on what ends up passing at the federal government. I know the current bill does allow for recouping of the increased sick leave and FMLA via tax credits, except we don't pay taxes, so we aren't going to get any tax credits to offset the leave. So, I mean, but that really, I was on a webinar with Von Briesen this morning that talked a lot about that. It may already be out of date. Who knows? It hasn't even made it out of the technical corrections yet to the Senate to see if they'll act on it as is or whether they're going to change it wholesale. And then once it's passed, there's going to be 2 weeks of emergency rulemaking to determine how that's going to play out regardless. So I think it's too early to say how that's going to play out. And too early to say how any medical effects play out and, who's affected by it and who's not.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely, Jay.
It's not a COVID-19 answer, but it is a 2020 big picture answer in part, at least. We do have the ongoing landfill testing that has not, it's not been budgeted for what we're doing in 2020. So as Carrie mentioned, this increased testing requirement from the DNR came up fourth quarter of 2019. Our budget process was in place and we had levy limits that we did tax to the max according to the levy limit formula and preserving expenditure restraint in 2020's budget. We will be in a tough position year end 2020. Things are, I would say that curve is starting to flatten from a flattening the curve reference for our landfill, which is a good thing regarding the testing. It's still not, we're still not out of the woods from a cost standpoint, but it has been significant the first 3 months of 2020 as well. And we were hoping to provide more information, not only to the council, but to the residents, constituents of the Villa Park area on the 24th. And as of today, we've canceled that meeting as well. But we'll certainly keep you all abreast of that and where we're at financially and otherwise.
Thanks, Jay. Any other comments or questions for Carrie? All right, Carrie. Well,
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good luck with the audit. Item number 13 is a disallowance of a claim for Jesse Garcia. Information is in our packets. This has
Motion
been-
to deny.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any,
Is the person here? No? Okay.
now, so generally, these claims have been submitted, and our insurance company came back and said they're not allowable, so we should disallow it. At this point, we end up disallowing it, and then the insurance companies fight it out.
Right.
So I have a motion and a second to deny. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 14 is a disallowance of claim for Mid-State Amusement Games. And Ian, this is the one I had asked about a little bit earlier. I'm not, this one didn't seem,
So I don't see the response from our assessor attached as well, but the opinion letter from Weston Dunn is attached, analyzing it. Basically, they're recommending that this claim doesn't really have a basis, and with the timing of it and with the way that's how it's stated, there's no real basis for it to be sustained, so they're recommending denial of the claim.
okay. Yeah, I was just confused because it talked about going to the insurance company. I'm not sure why it went to the insurance company, but
Yeah,
Motion
it was
to
kind of
deny.
a weird claim, given that it was for personal property taxes and such.
okay, thanks. I have a motion. Do I have a second on that one to deny?
Motion denied.
Motion to deny.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Item number 15 is a disallowance of a claim for David Zelmer.
Motion to deny.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Being no further business before the Finance Committee, I adjourn.
Thanks, Rich. I'll call the Common Council meeting for March 16th, 2020 to order. Note that we do have a quorum, and there are 20 items on the agenda. Item number 1, regular meeting council minutes for March 2nd, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Items 2 through 12 are the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Item 13, disallowance of the claim for Jesse Garcia.
Motion to deny.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Item 14, disallowance of a claim for Mid-State Amusement Games.
Motion to deny.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Item 15, disallowance of a claim for David Zelmer.
Motion to deny.
Second.
The motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Item 16 is the appointment of additional election workers. Their names are in our packet. Stephanie, you got anything to say about that, or?
These were people that I had missed on my list, and also ones that didn't get back to us till after we had the previous appointments made in December. So with the November general election being a big election, I need all the workers that I can get, so I'm going through some training and appointments at this time.
Are you going to need any additional help for this April election with what we just talked about earlier,
Right now, I'm fully staffed,
you're good?
and I had extras that were going to be working. But with the increase in in-person absentee and mailing absentees, I don't see that there's going to be the turnout at the polls as I had anticipated, so I have plenty of help.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the list.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Item 17, approving certified city map, City of West Bend Manufacturing Center, 2 lots and 1 outlot located on the east side of South River Road, across from Whaleway, northwest 1/4 and southwest 1/4, section 31, T11N, R20E. And presentation by Jay.
Yeah, you have the proposal in your packet. This is for the Milwaukee Tool development. The north half of that development, or Lot 1, is the northernmost extent of our new TID 14. That's where their initial building would be located. If the southern Lot 2, is another 20 acres. That's for future expansion. We're in negotiations right now with Milwaukee Tool regarding the developers agreement. We anticipate bringing that before you in the near future. If you've looked closely at your CSM proposal, the Outlot 1 was discovered during the title search of the property when we received that from the farmer, from Renner in this case. There was a historical site, and if you zoomed in or looked closely, it's a potential burial ground. And the plan is to exclude that, not sell that as part of the development. If, assuming Milwaukee Tool is interested in Lot 2, or any other entity is interested in Lot 2, that we would retain Outlot 1. It's a 1.5 acres. It can be left as green space. Ian, I don't know if you have any more comments from a legal standpoint, but we are anticipating the first phase of utilities to be on the eastern edge of the development for both lots and provide water and sewer to Milwaukee Tool from Railway to the north in the right-of-way of what we can now control as River. And then you can also see the right-of-way that's been dedicated for the newly named Forge Place, the new east-west road, to be constructed again yet this year. It's anticipated to be in place, assuming things continue to progress the way they are and the rest of the world doesn't fall apart, by the end of October. So that's the plan for Forge Place to be completed by that time. I don't know if there's any questions or if I left anything out. Okay. Thanks.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. If there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion carries. Before we get to the reports section, I just wanted to take a minute and to address the COVID-19 situation, the city's response to it. As members of the council and the city team, our main concerns during these trying times are the health and welfare of our employees, their families, and the citizens of West Bend as a whole. There's so much going on that we don't know regarding this issue. As humans, we all fear the unknown. As each hour passes, the information on the outbreak changes. But as members of the council, we're doing our best to help the citizens of West Bend through these trying times. Please don't panic, but remain calm and vigilant. This morning, I was able to take part via conference call on a department head meeting regarding the COVID-19 virus. There was a wealth of information shared between the various department heads and how we will come together to work our way through these trying times. Department heads shared information, worked through ideas on the direction the city will take as it moves forward. City Administrator Jay Shambo will share some of the ideas that were discussed on the day-to-day operations, meetings, and programs that the city provides. After hearing our department heads working together this morning, I can assure all of you that we have an amazing team leading us through this situation. As always, our employees and citizens of West Bend remain in the forefront of our minds. We will get through this by working together. As I stated earlier, please do not panic, remain calm and vigilant, and take care of one another. And with that being said, Jay, if you want to give us some of the highlights, please.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I certainly second everything that Steve said regarding the department head team working together. That was the longest department head meeting that I've been a part of, not only here in West Bend, but in my career in local government. But it was really pretty cool to see folks coming together. We did have Ian join us by way of conference call, and quickly dialed in interim mayor Hoogaster as well, which was helpful to have, and for the department heads to know that they are both on board and assisting and supporting as well. Steve mentioned that we're doing all that we can and that things change. So this morning when we collectively recommended and asked Steve about the emergency agenda change under emergency rule less than 24 hours, Steve was quick to agree to do that because we were thinking that 50 plus people would be in attendance. And I know that's something that you all have been, that item is something that you all have been wrestling with and will continue to weigh on your minds. But it was felt that recommending removing that agenda was important. How quickly things change. Now there's talk about maybe only 10 people gatherings, and we'll have to maybe address these meetings in the future, whether or not they fall under that parameter or not. We have talked about travel restrictions with employees and employees' choice to travel, and what happens if they do travel outside of state, what happens if they have traveled. We're formulating information to share back with them, and many individuals, many employees have had plans, currently had plans, have had plans cancel already for spring break and personal once of a lifetime vacations that they're all, and everybody is making sacrifices, and just know that your staff is doing that as well in order to be here and to serve the city of West Bend. We have canceled as many in-person meetings as possible. I already mentioned the Villa Park Landfill public informational meeting that we were really hopeful to present. As of last Friday, we thought we had a really great idea to host the meeting in a digital format in this very chambers and broadcast it to our constituents live and allow them to ask questions live as well of the panel of experts that we were able to assemble. As of this morning, the DNR's travel requirements would no longer allow them to send staff even to the city of West Bend. So we did cancel that meeting after receiving that intel. Park Commission, Bid Board, Library Board, other meetings like that have been canceled, and unless there is an essential item on an agenda that needs to meet a development or bonding parameter, we're going to continue to recommend canceling those meetings. The library itself is closing as of Tuesday night, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. They are going and have advertised already that they will be closed through April 13th. So all library programs, events that the library had scheduled to be closed as well at the library, and their staff will continue to report to work at this time and work on past projects and things that have been pent up in the library that they just haven't been able to get to. They also might be assisting in other parts of the city of West Bend organization as needed. Park recreation, forestry programs, facility rentals have all been canceled as well through April 13th at this time. We already talked about the Roots and Branches annual plant sale. Loch Lorraine Conservancy programs as well. The first scheduled wedding is scheduled for May 29th out at that facility, so we'll see. But at this time, all of the events and programs through April 13th have been canceled out at Loch Lorraine. Stephanie, the next item I have on my bulleted list here is the April 7th election. I'll defer to you if you would prefer to talk through it.
Thank you, Jay. Yes, at this time, the clerk's office is still encouraging everyone to request an absentee ballot that should be mailed to them The easiest way is for residents to go to myvote.wi.gov and request an absentee ballot be mailed to them. We had two directives that came from the Wisconsin Elections Commission. No special voting deputies can go to the nursing homes, and we can move polling locations if they are associated with a residential care facility or nursing home. So at this time, I am in contact with Cedar Ridge and with Meadowbrook Manor that I have not been in contact with Meadowbrook Manor yet, but we will be working out details to move them, both of them, voting locations. And I will be working with both of them places to try to get absentee requests that can be mailed to them instead of having them have to come to a different polling location. So I will be working with them. As for the special voting deputies that did not go to the nursing homes, we will be mailing all of them absentee ballots, but they will also have to have some voter registrations done. During our webinar today with the Wisconsin Elections Commission, they did give us the 2 directives as to moving polling locations and no special voting deputies. However, all other deadlines remain in place, and we have to meet them deadlines. That includes voter registration by mail or online will end on Wednesday, March 18th. So that's in 2 days that I have to get the nursing homes registered to vote that may have just taken up residency at that location. So I will be working with them. I have already been in contact with the nursing homes. Last week, Friday, I sent them the voter registration and the link to My Vote to get the registrations completed that we need to. The other deadlines will be in-person absentee at the clerk's office. It started today. We had 122 people vote in person in the clerk's office today. And that in-person absentee voting will happen until April 3rd at 5 p.m. on the Friday before the election. They said that we cannot alter any of our in-person absentee voting. If we have more people standing in line, I have to direct them to wait outside, that I only have a certain amount of people in the clerk's office at one time. I cannot change any of the other deadlines. The mail-in, that I went over. And I just want to reassure everybody that the clerk's job is to make, clerk's office, his job is to make give everyone an opportunity to vote, and we're willing to work extra hours and to make sure that this is accomplished. At this time, we still have 3 weeks of in-person absentee voting, so I feel that in-person and mailing applications can be received until the Thursday before the election for the absentee ballot to be mailed to you. So I feel this is adequate time, and we should be able to accomplish this, that everyone has the opportunity to vote at the April 7th election. If you have anything else, Jay, feel free.
I think maybe just 2 things. Thanks, Stephanie. I think stressing that the myvote.wi.gov is really easy, really easy to do. You might even be able to do it during a meeting, as I just witnessed Ian accomplish while Stephanie was talking. I did it this afternoon personally myself, and it literally is a matter of minutes and does not take a lot of technology. It's really self-explanatory. So please consider doing that. That frees up not only Stephanie's office time, but also the fear of congregating multiple people in an area. So strongly consider that. And then just know as a council and constituency that not only is your clerk's office in good hands with Stephanie, that she is supported as well, that there are other departments within this organization that'll provide assistance as need be to continue to make sure that election goes off without a hitch. I don't know if there's any comments or questions about that in particular before we move on.
Thank you, Stephanie. You've done a good job keeping me informed on the nursing home stuff, too.
3 things. If you're doing the myvote.gov to request a absentee ballot, you need to send a picture of your photo ID, which Ian just did. But
that is correct. But if you've ever voted by mail before and we have your photo ID on file, you do not have to do it at this time. So there are instances where you will not have to do that. But if you walk through it, it is pretty easy to attach that to that application. And as soon as a resident clicks submit, I get an email immediately. And from there,
You can utilize your phone to add your photo ID.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Just didn't want people to be surprised. Second thing, if someone is in line for in-person absentee ballot or voting at, or is that right? Yeah, it's in-person absentee voting. If they're in line at 4:30 when you close, say you've got a line of 25
We're
people.
here until the line is gone.
Okay.
We never turn anybody away.
Okay, and then one final thing, what are you doing in terms of the poll workers as far as limiting crowds in the polling places and?
I have not had time to even think about that yet.
Okay.
I will be working, I'm going to call a meeting with my chief election workers, and we will work through the standards and policies, whatever we want to work out on election day. One of the something that they suggested today during our webinar is curbside voting. But that would be really a strain on my polling locations, but it's definitely something that could happen on election day.
I think some of those answers will unfold as the next
Yeah.
few days do. The last item that I wanted to share is just access to City Hall. We're encouraging the public to utilize our online resources that we have available to pay bills, issue permits, interact with city staff. Please come to City Hall if you need to, but only if you need to, is the message that we're attempting to send. We're going to be limiting access to some parts of the building. We've been in communication with the municipal court at this time. They're planning to continue to hold court, but have canceled some trials. So they're already beginning, and I'm sure they're dealing with what to do on an hourly basis as well. So stay tuned on that. That's really all I had. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Stephanie. For those listening, you can see that the team we have in place is doing an amazing job, and I'm sure they'll continue to lead us through this stuff. So, getting to the reports. Item 18, report by Alderman Model regarding the downtown bid board meeting.
Yeah, just another note, City West Bend's website just got rebuilt within the last couple of months, really easy to navigate, so you should be able to get a lot of resources through that. I met with the bid board just yesterday last week, and the transportation board yesterday. We talked about, this morning that was, geez, I can't keep my day straight, right. We talked about the parking issue again downtown, nothing to report yet now, but we're working on that. We talked a little more about the dog waste stations downtown on the trails that now allow that. And again, we're still working on pricing and exactly what and where and all that. So, Roots and Branches gave a presentation, talked about budget. That looks like that's going to go forward again. And thank you very much to Roots and Branches. They're doing a great job downtown. And again, next time you hear from me, we'll be talking more about the downtown parking ordinance. So that's about it.
Any questions for Justice? Item 19, report by Alderman Chevalier regarding the Tourism Commission meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a quick meeting on March 3rd. We were awarding the grant funds for different operations going on in the summer, and we narrowed it down to awarding 3 different operations. The 3 were Habitat for Humanity doing German Fest. They were awarded $3,750. $3,750 was also awarded to the Hometown Foundation doing the Homegrown Music Festival, and then the remaining $12,500 of the $20,000 grant was to the to MOA for the Art and Chalk Fest again. So 3 great operations. Hopefully, get some more heads in beds, as we like to say on that committee. So that's all we got.
Very good. Any questions for Andrew? If not, item 20, report by Alderman Jenkins or Alderman Caston regarding the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Steve. We'll continue on some of that good news. So there were a number of development pieces that did come out of the Planning Commission, which is always good to hear. We had 3 public hearings, one from microblading establishment at 111 North Main, another for a hard cider processing in a residence. No, there's not a store there, so don't go running over there trying to get some right now. And then the final public hearing was around the Quick Trip, and I think everybody on the Planning Commission was pretty impressed by the Quick Trip and the way the neighborhood and the Quick Trip came together to solve some of the issues that were kind of in the way of making that a successful development. So it was good to see. I think everybody came out, happy with what we're going to do there. So that went very well. The front of Kingpin Bowl is going to look a little bit different. They're going to put some volleyball courts and patio improvements out on the east frontage here. And then we talked about what we talked about here, which is the Milwaukee Tool and converting those 2 lots into 1 lot. So we approved that as well, so we can continue on with that development.
Thanks, Rich. Any questions for Rich?
Sorry, I was just going to ask if the cider and the microblading and even Quick Trip, were those all suggested for being approved?
Yep, they're all.
Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing that came out that was an issue.
Is there now a time frame for when we're going to see, like the Quick Trip proposal come before council?
They are still in the process of working through, if I remember correctly, they're finishing up the site plan.
Yeah, I believe the traffic,
That was at the traffic study.
yeah, the traffic study is still.
So once that's completed, then it'll come before council.
Nothing more.
Okay, being no further business before the common council, I'll hereby adjourn. Are there any messages or comments? John?
Yeah, Steve, I'd like to just shout out to the West Bend basketball girls team for an outstanding season. Coach Pittens did a great job with his crew, and just like to congratulate them on a great season.
Very true, they did a great job this year. Thanks, John. All right, other than that, everybody take care, stay healthy. Good night.